Okay, so we're currently set up on Gloria, in the overlocking setting. We're going to switch over to cover stitch and we're going to set it up for a chain stitch with shearing elastic. So this will give you your shearing effect. So first and foremost, usually I would have my overlock table on here, but I've just taken this off so you can see slightly better. So we're going to, in fact, not do that. We're going to change it from overlocking to cover stitch. So to do that, if you want to come slightly around here, you'll need to see here. So there's just 4 steps to change over from overlocking to cover stitch. So first of all, you need to take this lever from up to down, and that drops our upper looper down so it's not going to hit the bed as it starts to sew. So I'm going to turn my hand wheel and that's going to just drop and then click into place. So now I can turn my hand wheel and that's not coming up and down. So when I put my cover stitch table on, it's not going to bash the table. I then need to lock my blade. So that's now locked that down into place. I need to move my needle from the overlocker side, which is just back from the cover stitch side, okay? So if I take this out, now for this you only need 1 needle for your shearing. So I'm going to put it in the central position. Make sure it's nice and high. You can see your needle needs to fill the gap that's at the top of the needle position. So if I do that, you can see there's a gap. And now when it's nice and high, it's in the right position, it's filled that gap. Okay. So I've moved that over. I need to put my cover stitch table on, which is like this. And just slots in. Make sure the tower is always facing upwards, okay? And then I can close that up. Okay. So now threading up, we need to pop it into threading mode, turn our hand wheel to lock the tubes into place. My hand wheel now can't move at all, so I'm ready to be threading up. Now for your shearing elastic, we're going to need to do something called a threading cradle, which is it just assists to pull that shearing elastic through the tubes when it's a slightly thicker thread like that. So first of all, we've got our shearing elastic. I've actually put one of these discs on so the shearing elastic can sit on top of it, just so that the shearing elastic isn't going to spool at the bottom. Okay, so I've got it on there. It's going up to my thread guide, out the other side. I'm going to pop my presser foot down just so you can see slightly better. So we're going through here. So we're going front to back first of all. Front to back. We're then going around what I call the elbow, so just this metal bit here. Now usually you would sit this in this channel, okay? But because it's shearing elastic, you don't want to add extra tension. So we're not going to place it through that channel. I'll just do this all again. We're actually going to bypass that channel completely. And we're going to, if I bring that presser foot up, we're going to go through this little hook here. So this allows you to bypass the channel but still have the thread secure. So this is usually the only time I would use it, is if I'm using a shearing elastic. You don't want to add extra tension because it's already springy enough. So we're going through this channel here. Now we're going through to this port here. Now on Gloria, anything that's in green is overlocking, so for now we don't need to worry about it. Anything in this browny gold colour is your cover stitch, and that's what we need to focus on. So I'm just going to spool a little bit extra off so it's not got too much resistance. To do your threading cradle, you're just going to get a long piece of thread and you're going to snip it. And I'm going to fold it in half so that my 2 cut ends are together. Like this, okay? And then I'm going to pop that 2 cut ends into my chain looper channel. I'm just going to encourage it just a smidge, and we're going to put my thumb through the loop. Now if you don't put your thumb through the loop, this is going to blow all the way through and you're not going to have anything to pull the shearing elastic through with. So when I'm ready, I press that and I'm going to get it nice and close to the end. If I open up the side of the machine, you will see that that thread that we've blown through has pulled in here. Okay, so I can just pull this out to there and leave that. I'm going to use this loop that we've created and I'm going to put the shearing elastic through the loop. I'm going to make sure that I've got plenty of it through. And then I'm gonna hold the shearing elastic and hold the other end of the thread we've already blown through and just give it a little pull. You might find some resistance because obviously it is shearing elastic, so it's gonna stretch, and then eventually it will pop through. So now I can just trim that off a smidge, leave that dangling down in the machine and close the door, okay? Close the door. I just need to thread up my needle now. So for this one, I'm using my middle needle, so it's C2, that's how it's noted in the manual. The easiest way to do the cover stitch needles on Gloria is to go in from the front. So go in from the front, you're going down the back, and if you look over the top of the machine, you've got your thread guide. Now once you get to this point, you're then going to pull to the right hand side and you'll hear it click, and then that sits correctly in that thread guide. That is the easiest way to do it rather than going from back to front. And then you're going up and around this little metal bit. There's a clip just above the needles that you can sit it through, and then we're going to bring our needle threader down. Now with our needle threader, the only thing we need to do is tell it whether we're threading up a cover stitch needle or an overlocker needle. So if we move just slightly up, we can see here you've got overlocker and you've got chain and cover. So we've got that lever pushed over to that side so it knows we're threading up our chain needles. So the air's going to pull through there. Now I'm going to show you this with tweezers just so my hands aren't in the way. So you want to hover your thread kind of nearish your needle threader. You've got a button on the side of the machine here, and then when you're ready you can do, and you can see that's jumped in. So when I'm ready I can pull that up. That's given me a tail at the behind, and then I can just bring that through. Okay, so that's my needle threaded. Now the last thing I have to do is take it out of that threading mode, serging. I can now close up this door. For shearing, I would always recommend going with a long stitch length. So I've got the stitch length dial just at the bottom here, okay, and I'm going on 4, so right at the top. And then when we're ready, obviously if you were shearing on a garment, I would usually recommend doing it in the round. So you're just kind of spiraling round and round and round your garment. However, I haven't got anything in the round, so I'm just going to work it like this. But the key thing is you need to keep it continuous. So I'm going to do a line of stitching, put my needle in, pivot, turn, and then turn again. So press foot lifts just on the side here. What you'll find when you do the shearing elastic that it sounds a bit clunky. Now don't worry about that, because it is just because we're working with quite a thick thread in the shearing elastic, it's going to sound that bit clunkier. Top tip with shearing elastic, the hemline elastic is the most reliable. Because they're all coated in different things, some of them react differently to going through the tube. So I find the hemline the best and most reliable one. If we look over at the shearing elastic, what I'd also recommend doing is checking the direction it spins off of your shearing spool, so that you make sure you get the smoothest spin off. But also, when you start, just pull a bit of excess through the other side of here, so that it's not creating extra resistance as it's going. So you just got to keep a slight eye on that. And then when I'm ready, I'm just going to hold this like this, and then I can start. And just keep an eye on that shearing elastic, because obviously you do get extra resistance with it. So you want to try and make sure it goes through as smoothly as possible. Okay. And you might need to continue to bring a little bit of extra shearing elastic on the right side of that thread stand. And then when I get to where I want to pivot, I'm going to stop. I'm going to make sure my needle is down in the fabric. We'll just bring that tail through. It's out the way. I'm going to lift my presser foot, pivot, put it down, and then again do a couple of lines, make sure that's nice and low, and then pivot again. temperamental now. Key thing with your shearing elastic, when you get to the end, make sure your press foot is down to trap that shearing elastic so that you can snip it. If that foot isn't down, it's going to pop back into the machine and you'll need to rethread. Back apart of that. I'm just about seeing that light. And obviously when you steam that, it's then going to shrink even more to give you that real nice shade effect.